Parents of Reddit, what is the worst way your kids have ever embarrassed you? At a bakery near my house, my sister asked my mom, "That man has big bum. How does he fit on the toilet?" He heard, and so did everyone else in the store. My mom found a new bakery. My boy, when he was learning to talk, he said dong instead of clock. He was infatuated with them and would point and scream dong dong. One day we were in Target and went down the clock aisle, and the next thing I hear is him screaming, "There are dongs everywhere." Okay, not really their fault, but this is the story. I'm cleaning out the garage and have a bunch of stuff in the driveway to pull out the lawnmower for the first mow of spring. As I'm driving the mower, I start to notice people driving by slowing down and looking mad at me. It was weird, but I didn't think too much about it. Then 2 different people flipped me off and a few others yelled, but since I was driving the mower I couldn't hear what they were saying. Plus they were driving. Finally, I can't stand it and have no clue why my mowing is pee everyone off, so I shut the mower off and start to go inside. Then I'm walking by my driveway, not visible from where I was mowing, and see my children, ages 5 and 6, climbed into my dog's old cage and somehow locked themselves in. So it looked to everyone like I locked my kids in a cage while I mowed the lawn. Not cool. When my son was in 2nd grade, they wrote a book about their mothers for Mother's Day. It was cute because for a month he would ask random questions about my life and follow up with, "In case you are wondering why I asked, there's no reason." When he brought home the book, I read it and was thrilled. When I was done, I set it down and only then noticed the cover. They had drawn a 8.5x11 portrait-like photo of their mothers for the front. It showed me with a huge smile, messed up hair, and a shirt that said "Let's Get Lit" across the front. It was in reference to a shirt I had bought their father for Christmas with a lit up Christmas tree. Not only had I never worn it, he conveniently left the tree out of the portrait. I was mortified, and when I asked him why he did that, his reply was, "You look good in green," and it's the only green shirt I could remember. I'm sure his teacher's obvious dislike for me was not a coincidence. I would just casually show up to his class in the middle of February wearing your husband's shirt. Oh, how dumb of me, I must have grabbed the wrong shirt. The Christmas one that says "Let's Get Lit" on it. Not my kid, actually my aunt's. They were in a department store and he was wandering around aimlessly while she shopped. Suddenly, she hears him yell, "Mommy, come here, you have to see this." She goes over to the children's department and finds him pointing at a little person. He was an employee of the store. "Look, Mom, this is so cool," he called, pointing excitedly. She didn't know what to say. "Oh, yes, he works here. He gets to come here every day. That is cool." "No, Mommy, I mean it's cool because he's a Muppet." She apologized, grabbed my cousin and ran away. I don't have kids, but I actually remember doing this to my dad. I was in kindergarten, and every day when the kids were picked up from school, the parents had to do a sign out. I remember standing at the teacher's desk with my dad while he signed me out and made idle chit chat with the teacher. I remember her glancing at me and feeling like I needed to contribute something to the conversation, so I just blurted out, "My daddy sleeps naked." I think it was something I had only recently discovered and thought it was just a fun fact. My dad was mortified. My wife and I had her brother and his girlfriend over for dinner. While we were chatting over coffee, our young son walked up to the table and stood my wife's pink vibrator on a placemat and asked, "What's this, Daddy?" He burst out laughing. Wife died of embarrassment. The girlfriend looked everywhere but the table, and I just picked it up and said to my son, "That's Mommy's, shall we put it back?" It was soon forgotten when more wine was drunk. When my son was about 3, we went to Jamba Juice. It was packed, of course. As I was ordering, he squirmed out of my hand and went about 20 feet away from me. Proceeded to walk back and forth throwing his arms around and yelled at the top of his little lungs, "Frick, frick, frick." He looked like a crazy homeless person. I was completely mortified. That sounds hilarious. When I was 4, we went to Olive Garden. I saw a black man at the table next to us and said, "Michael Jordan." Michael Jordan. Luckily he just laughed about it. I did this in an elevator when my family went on vacation, except it was an Asian guy and I asked him if he was Jackie Chan. My parents were embarrassed but he thought it was hilarious. My daughter saw a woman at a store who had very large breasts. She yells out, "Mama, that lady has big boobies. Why you have little boobies?" I do the exact same thing to my girlfriend all the time. Don't have kids. I did this to my parents at a mall. I spent a lot of my childhood in India, so I wasn't that familiar with how things went in the US. I was walking with my parents in the mall when I saw a lady who had her kid on one of those leashes for kids. So I yell out across the mall, "Look, they have a kid for a pet." The lady, looking really annoyed, picked up a leashed kid and walked away. I'm going to say this whenever I see someone with a child leash now. Hold your freaking kid's hand. He's not a dog. I don't remember where this took place or how old I was exactly, but I was young enough to talk and was still in a stroller, so I must have been about 3. Apparently, as we strolled past a woman who happened to be black, I loudly said, "Hi Oprah." I guess I had never seen a black woman besides Oprah. My mom was pretty embarrassed, but this woman was apparently flattered and laughed, so I guess it wasn't all that bad. This happened to a friend who works at a daycare. She was helping a kid take his coat and boots off when the kid decides to blurt out, "My mommy has a really hairy front butt." My friend looks at the kid, tells him not to talk about his mommy's front butt, and continues like nothing happened. She's pretty professional considering I would have laughed my butt off, then made the kid repeat it for my own humor to others. I started laughing so hard my roommate knocked on the door to comfort me and ask why I was crying. My dad once told me about the time he took me to a grocery store to just do some basic grocery shopping, and I ended up wandering off and started screaming help as loud as I could when he found me, as I was a blonde fair-skinned kid and my dad was a tall Greek Italian with dark hair and tan skin. Security ended up restraining my dad since they couldn't believe we were related, and my mum had to be called over to confirm that I was his daughter. My mother's story, because I asked her. My brother was playing t-ball and I was about 5 years old at the time. Mom was talking to my brother's friend's mother and some other mothers. This mother happened to be deaf, but read lips and spoke. I did not know what deaf was at this moment, or didn't pick up that she was. Anyways, my brother's friend takes a baseball to the face, and his cheek is swelling. Someone yells, "You okay?" To which the friend replied, "I'm fine," but had a very swollen mouthed accent to it. 5-year-old me decided to yell back, "No you're not. You sound like your mother." My mother added, "We were all just glad she couldn't hear you say that," and pretended it didn't happen. My sister taught her 5-year-old daughter the proper names for genitals. One day when my sister was filling her car with petrol, my niece pointed at a lady nearby yelling, "Look mummy, that lady has a big vagina." Everyone heard. The lady had a camel toe. When I was kid, in 2nd grade there was some sort of anti-drinking and driving campaign. I didn't understand the concept of it, so when the teacher said, "I hope none of your parents drink and drive," I raised my hand proudly and said that my dad does. My dad drank Coca-Cola. I didn't know the difference between Coke and beer. All I knew was they were brown, bubbly, and I wasn't allowed to drink it. Come to think of it, what is the point of a drinking and driving campaign in elementary school? So that you go home and nag your parents. I used to nag mine about all sorts of stupid crap I heard at school. When I was a kid, my mom and I went to the grocery store. As we're checking out, the cashier gives my mom the total, and my mom starts writing out a check. I look at her confused and say rather loudly, "But mommy, I thought you said you didn't have any money in the bank?" Oh god. Thanks for dredging up a memory for me. My mom was applying for a loan when I was 8. I blurted out, in front of the loan officer, "I thought daddy said you weren't allowed to do that. He said you spend too much money that we don't have already." Yeah, mom didn't get the loan. Or did we? JPG. I remember my mom telling this story. Basically when my brother was little he learned the phrase "ah crap," but he would pronounce it aww she. Apparently he said it all the time when he dropped something. So, there my mom is, sitting in the Kingdom Hall. My grandma is a Jehovah's Witness and made us go to church every once in a while. When my brother dropped the Bible, it was dead silent and all you hear is aww she haha. My little sister loved dress up. One day, my mother had a group of guys in her bathroom laying tiles. My sister, having the time of her life, walked in wearing my mom's laciest and most revealing lingerie. Oops. As my daughter is too young to embarrass me yet, here is what I did to my mother. The first time I saw a lady wearing a full burqa I excitedly screamed, "Look mum, it's Darth Vader." I'm not sure if the lady in the burqa knew who Vader was, but she stopped and just stared at my mother, who went beetroot and ushered me out of the shop. Upvote for beetroot. Not me, but when my mom took my brother to the grocery store when he first learned how to talk, sitting in the shopping cart, he points at a black woman and says, "Look mom, it's Bill Cosby." Double quote. I was a little crap as a kid, and I can probably come up with way too many stories. My favorite, though, was when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I forget the details, but for some reason I was naked. Bath time, maybe, and I had managed to run out of the house. I ran as fast as I could down the street, but my father was faster than I was, and he caught me. As soon as he picked me up, I started yelling, "You're not my mother. You're not my father. Help. Help. Call the police." I think we'd just had some sort of anti-kidnapping speech at preschool. Now, we lived next door to a baseball field, and there happened to be a group of kids doing baseball practice, along with all their parents. So imagine my father, carrying his naked 5-year-old daughter, who's screaming her head off about being kidnapped. My father just kept repeating, "No, really, she's my daughter," in the face of all the angry, glaring baseball parents. Your kids are going to punish you for that one, and deservedly so. My dad used to pinch my fat face when I was around 5, and I hated it. One day we went to the park and he pinched my face and then walked off. Angrily, I began searching for him to get my revenge. I saw him talking to a group of people, so I ran up to him and pantsed him. I pulled his underwear off too. When my son was about 3 years old, he went to daycare at the YWCA where I worked out. He had just been potty trained and was excited to wear big boy underpants, and usually told everyone at daycare what kind he was wearing that day. So one morning the cute guy I'd been flirting with holds the door open for us, and my son says, "I'm wearing my Superman undies today." Cute, right? Then he says my mom is just wearing big, white ones. Tagged as big white undies. Don't have kids, but I remember when I was younger, 5ish maybe, my brother was 7 or so, my mom was in a minor car accident while driving us downtown. It was just a rear ending, but both of the cars pulled over and waited for the police. Not sure why they came, but they did. The police officer asked my mom if there was anyone else in the van, and she said yes, so he asked her to open the door. At this time my brother and I thought it would be hilarious to drape ourselves over the car seats and act dead when the police officer opened the door. So yeah, frazzled mom and police opened the door. My brother and I are sprawled on the seats, eyes closed and not moving. She was mortified. I do believe we started laughing after that, so all was well. We were driving down to the local village and had stopped to talk to a well-respected matriarch type. Having opened the window to engage in polite conversation, my 3-year-old daughter announced, "My dad has a willy." Awkward. "So, if you'd be so kind to let me know if you see it, I'd be so appreciative," and then drive off. I don't understand why more parents just don't back their kids in such situations. I have 2 girls, 10 and 9. I decided to gather up their cousins, my niece and nephew, and take them to go see Johnny English. The theater was moderately full and it was the daytime, so children weren't minded too much. That was until my 9-year-old decided to test everyone's noses and unleash a series of hellish farts that would make a grown man with a beefy bean burrito fetish cry. She continued to fart with no regard to the people behind us really, and I told her to let me know if she had to use the bathroom. Nope, didn't work. She kept quiet, covering her fart with laughs up until the point I flat out asked, "Little girl, do you have to boo boo? I'll take you to the bathroom, please stop." Of course, she didn't. Silent but deadlies, little poppers, big humps, and I seriously started to think she did it on purpose. The people behind us moved, and as soon as ending credits went, we hightailed it out of there. She didn't have to use the bathroom, but I had a long discussion about her farting habits. I don't know if it was that new healthy pack that AMC has for kids, wheat chips with apple juice, if I remember that right, but good lord, that was the worst. TLDR. Kid farts up movie theater. People gagged and moved as a result. At least you can keep that story for when she's older and brings her friends back to the house. My 2.5-year-old son is going through a bit of a train phase. Goes nuts when we pass by a train. Wants to watch Thomas the Train all day, etc, etc. So it should come as no surprise that he has latched onto a toy train as his favorite toy. The toy is the train named Percy from Thomas the Train Show. Everywhere we go he has to be holding Percy. Problem is that he is also quite clumsy still. The moment he drops Percy it's a mad dash to hurry up and get the train back to him. You see, the problem is that he can't quite enunciate the word Percy. Instead he says P, or rather he is sobbing out the word P at the top of his lungs, over and over. Not a parent, but my little sister who is 9 years younger than me. When she was 3, she, my mom, and I went to the store. We were standing on line to check out and an obese guy with crutches was standing in front of us. But my little sister opens her mouth and starts to say pretty loud, "Why is that guy?" My mom thought she was going to say "Why is that guy on crutches?" but instead she said, "Why is that guy so fat?" I never knew the shade of red my mom turned was possible. When my daughter was 4 and 5 years old I was still in contact with my mom, and she would spend the night on Saturdays with her due to my work schedule. On Sundays she would go to church with her. About 5 months after this schedule started, my mom came home to tell me that my daughter had apparently told everyone in church that I was dead. They never questioned her since they had never met me and she had only gone to church with my mom. I guess it came up in Sunday school when they were making Mother's Day cards and she didn't want to make one for me, so she told them I was dead. Her reasoning was that she was smart enough, even at 4, to know I thought church was a joke, and so didn't want to participate in making me church crafts. I could not stop laughing. The only thing that tops this is when she got up and had an argument with the preacher over Easter, because he was just not understanding that Jesus was a zombie. When I was about 9, my little sister said she had to show me something in my parents' closet. So when the coast was clear, we'd go in there and she climbs up on the high shelf and pulls down a dildo. This dildo was designed to look like a real dong, which is how me and my sister knew what it was so naturally. When my dad comes home from work, I say, "Hey dad, why do you have a fake dongadoodle in your closet?" I can't even imagine how embarrassed he must have been. I quickly learned not to talk about dongadoodle-doos in my house. First post to make me literally laugh out loud. I will use the term dongadoodle-doo with my kids. I don't have kids, but I remember doing this to my parents. We had an assignment in class that asked what we were most afraid of. The assumed answers was stuff like bears and snakes. Not long before this my mother, trying to be authoritative, stated that my brothers and I should be more afraid to do anything bad because the consequences would never be the same. She would get really angry. Anyway, I wrote on my paper that I was afraid of both my parents, didn't want to leave my dad out either. My teacher never got to see it before the end of the day, so I brought it home. My parents flipped. My mother was freaking out asking me why I would write something like that. Probably with the best 7-year-old troll face ever. I told her, "You said I should be afraid of you." They erased my answer and took me out for pizza afterward. Sorta in the same vein, my 3-year-old called a black lady at Target chocolate. Her reaction was the worst possible one. She laughed, and for a freaking month he called every black person we saw chocolate. When I was little, my mom used to give me small taps on the butt to tell me I'm doing something I'm not supposed to do. So one day, I was at Disneyland and a complete stranger offers me candy. My mother immediately whisks me away and takes me to the bathroom to explain to me why I must never accept candy from strangers or talk to strangers in general. Being the 3-year-old me and having no clue what was going on, I just screamed, "Don't hit me. Don't hit me. I'm sorry." I wonder what my mom felt like as we exited the crowded bathroom. Not my kid, but something I did that my mom will not let me forget to this day. When I was really little, I was probably 3 when this happened. My parents, who are white, lived in a predominantly black area of Oakland. One afternoon, my mom was doing some work at home and I was watching a nature show about apes on Discovery. After she finished her work, we went to the grocery store. After hours shopping, on our way out the door, my mom was pushing me in the cart as we passed a group of large African American gentlemen. Recalling the show I'd been watching that afternoon, I screamed at the top of my lungs, "Mommy, mommy, look at the gorillas." As she tells it, she couldn't even get out the words to apologize, just avoided eye contact with every human being around and left as quickly as possible. My dad said he was both embarrassed and proud when we were at the supermarket one time and I saw a dump truck. Me being 1 and 1/2 at the time pointed at it and started yelling dump fuck, dump fuck, dump fuck. He tried to correct me, but I just kept shouting out dump fuck, dump truck. Asked my mom for this one and it's kind of funny. Anyways, when I was a youngster my parents sent me to a daycare run by nuns. I was really social but had a tendency to be a little bad sometimes. So one time as my mom is picking me up, the nun told her that I had sat on a girl and told her let's make babies. My mom was horrified. Funny maybe yes, but she said I got spanked afterwards. No recollection of this at all. When I was about 6, I went grocery shopping with my dad. As we are walking through an aisle we see a man shopping who only has one arm. So being the 6-year-old I stuck both my arms in my sleeves so only my elbows were sticking out and flapped them around. My dad said he has never been more embarrassed in his life. That may have been the last time he took me shopping. Dang, if only I had known about this get out of jail free card sooner. I was working in a kindergarten. Kids were eating lunch in complete silence when one kid suddenly blurted out my mom has a beard on her PP. All the employees cracked up. When my son was about 8, and coincidentally, shortly before we discovered he's red-green colorblind, I let him pick his own outfit before going with me to run some errands on a Saturday. He wore a plaid shirt, different plaid shorts, red cowboy boots, and a rainbow striped beanie hat with a propeller on top. It was okay, though. My mere existence embarrassed the heck out of him when he was in his early teens. I suppose we're even now that he's in his 20s. I died when I got to the propeller hat. I remember when I was really young, maybe 4 or 5 years old, Mom and Dad took me grocery shopping with them at the local Iger. I told them I had to pee but they told me I had to hold it. Eventually I couldn't hold it any longer so I went to the magazine section, grabbed a magazine and sat on the floor and peed. Then I got up, put the magazine back and found my parents, not realizing that my parents immediately knew from the smell and from the fact that my pants were soaked what I'd just done. They were so embarrassed. But when you gotta go, there's got to be a thread somewhere in the bowels of Reddit that includes the story of the Iger employee who found the magazine soaked in pee on the rack. When I was about 2-3 I called frogs fuckies. I was trying to say frogies. So one day while at the grocery store I see some frog picture and started screaming look at the fuckies. Looks at the fuckies mommy. At 23 fuckies was something quite different. This is something I did as a kid. I was probably 8 or 9 and I'd gone roller skating with some friends and the minister at my church. 2 of the girls in the group were his daughters. My friends and I were standing around, bragging about how grown up we were and the badass things our parents let us do because we were so mature. I didn't understand at the time what an X-rated movie was. I just knew it was worse than an R rating. So I figured it just meant a super grown up kind of movie. Hoping to impress my friends, I said something like, my mom and dad let me watch X-rated movies with them all the time. Our minister was standing just a few feet away and definitely heard me. My parents weren't even there, but even years later when I told them, they were mortified. Even though our minister moved away like 20 years ago, it still makes me feel like a huge jackass. To be fair, you didn't know. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.